Hello, welcome to the Managing Drought in the Southern Plains webinar series. This is a short briefing describing conditions in the last few weeks in the Southern Plains. It's brought to you by the Southern Climate Impacts Planning Program, NOAA, National Integrated Drought Information System, and National Drought Mitigation Center. Here's what's changed this week. We don't have a whole lot of change over the course of the summer on the large scale. We've seen that drought that had been receding in Oklahoma is making a comeback. New Mexico is looking a lot better off in the most extreme categories, but we've also seen expansion of drought into Arkansas and Louisiana as well as the upper Midwest now. The monsoon is continuing in the southwest, bringing a little bit more relief there. We've also seen in this last week or so that the tropics have become more active and may bring some relief into South Texas, and there may be a little bit of a pattern shift on the horizon. This is this week's US Drought Monitor. Looks much as the same it has all summer. A little bit less of the darker reds, though, in the central part of the U.S. That drought is also very well established in the west, and you can see an expansion in Iowa, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Minnesota in the recent weeks, as well as further in the southeast. Over the last 3 months, what we've seen is that very little net change in the high plains. Both the area percent of drought has remained pretty much the same, both in the high plains and the west, although we've seen a decline in the most extreme categories in both those regions. In the south, we've seen an increase in drought over the last 3 months, drought area, but a decline in the most extreme category. So while drought is getting a little bit less intense in places, the area that it's affecting is spreading a little bit. Taking a closer look at some of our states, New Mexico has shown the greatest improvement over the last month, where you see a lot less of the D3 and D4, the extreme and exceptional drought categories. But it is still pretty much almost the entire state is in some level of drought. As we look over to the east of us in Arkansas, we've seen an intensification across southern Arkansas in the last month. There have been enough rains in the northern part to largely keep the drought at bay, although some of the abnormally dry areas, the D0, are expanding. As we look over into Louisiana, we see quite a bit of changes in the last month, as the northern Louisiana and western Louisiana are all pretty much in severe or extreme drought. A month ago, there was almost no severe drought at all. Now, almost half of the state is in severe drought. As we look at some of the causes of this, we can see in the last 14 days a very dry pattern across much of the southern plains, still wet in the southwest with the monsoon. Arizona especially, but also New Mexico. But across Oklahoma and West Texas, it's dried out much of the last couple of weeks. But before that, we actually had a pretty wet pattern. You can see across Oklahoma and a lot of Texas, New Mexico area. You can see that dryness in western Louisiana and also in the upper Midwest, especially in Iowa and Minnesota over the last 60 days. As we go further back 6 months to a year, you can see that dryness really still showing up very much in Texas, most of Texas, and western Oklahoma Panhandle, western Kansas. So there's a long-term dryness that is still underlying a lot of this area. Looking ahead in the next few days, we can see still generally warm weather across the southern plains, but it is maybe not quite as warm as it has been. The red line there showing about 3 degrees above average temperature. Very warm up into the Pacific Northwest, and still, of course, the fire threats they're dealing with out in much of the West, especially California up in Oregon. The rainfall pattern looks a little bit better, some green in the area, so that high pressure area that's been keeping the rain away from this area is starting to break down. We see maybe a tropical system coming in South Texas affecting that area, and the monsoons continuing off into New Mexico and on up into Colorado and Kansas. We especially see that rainfall today in Colorado as they've been having flooding problems around Boulder area. In the following week here, 8 to 14 day outlook shows still warm conditions, but expecting some rainfall across the area. So this is the pattern shift that we're starting to see. Dryness emerging out along the East Coast. There's some dryness showing up around the Washington, D.C. area on the Drought Monitor as well. And but a good signal for rainfall across the Central Plains and maybe into the Northwest. The 3-month outlook is the next one will be coming out in a week, so this is still the one for September, October, November, showing pretty much near normal on average conditions, but perhaps a little bit wet. This is the drought outlook looking at the next month. This is for August. One thing with the drought outlook is there's the seasonal drought outlook comes out with the other ones on the third Thursday of the month. There's also a monthly drought outlook that's issued at the end of the month, the last day of the month, for just a 1 month period. So that's what this one is showing. We can see the development that had been anticipated across Illinois and Iowa, and the improvements associated with this monsoon, and very little change in the rest of this. So hopefully the next one will look a little bit better, as there's maybe a little bit of a wetter pattern coming in. As always, we have these resources on our website, so we encourage you to join us. Please visit southernclimate.org. You can register with us so you get notification of these briefings, as well as our full webinar series that we try to hold each month to talk about conditions in a little bit more depth. We appreciate your joining us, and we hope you have a good week. Thank you.